We are going to talk about the rally at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, why is that happening, and also projections for the next USDA report with Jerry Gidel right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we have ended up the week with a rally. I guess the commodities are following the agricultural commodities are following other commodities. The crude oil prices are still very high with no clear path to the end of the war in the Middle East. But we are talking before we started recording that a lot of damage was done to those refineries. But at the same time, I think that the rally was because was a reaction to those projections of lower corn plantings in the U.S. So, what's your take on that?
Oh, I think that was a factor in there and what the expectations will be for the big report out on next Tuesday, March 31st, and that definitely lots of bluster going on between the U.S. and the Iranians at this point. Uh, First, we had a deadline last week of having some type of peace negotiation started. There seems to be also uh, some conflict between the Iranians saying they're negotiating and what Trump says he's talking to people over there about some kind of peace talks. So, as always, there's plenty of confusion when the U.S. and President Trump are in conversations with people. Even for a conference like the Chinese, we've had on somewhat semi-annual basis for a while. But the reality of it is that they ex they extended the thing another 5 to 10 days here on this scenario, supposedly coming to some type of arrangement to get talking on things. Hopefully that does occur. We don't need to end up uh, ex being, excuse me, don't need to expand the war if we don't need to. But at this point, that's still up a big factor out in front of us here. The Iranians definitely have been militarily a lot stronger, I think, than President Trump anticipated at this point, and hopefully uh, we can get something worked out. The Iranians have shifted some of their grain activity to the Gulf of Oman versus going through the Straits of Hormuz, and that's lessening some of the strains here. But right now, at least, uh, there's still a lot of issues going on there in that world. The This week, the U.S. though is really starting to concentrate on the upcoming reports at this point. So that's where the focus has been at this point. Uh, the one outside thing that I think is starting to have a factor here, though, is where the Brazilian second crop corn size is. A couple different outfits down there have reduced their prospects because of this erratic weather. And at this point, Argentina's in a similar situation. There was some better rains in Argentina, though, this last week. So kind of a mixed bag on that. But I think they've been already hurt a little bit on size. But that will be something to determine going forward here, because both of the crops will be not be harvested here in the next 2 days at this point. So
Yeah, so what are you seeing as your estimates for the upcoming USDA report in terms of changes in estimates and plantings?
exactly. Well, I think, of course, the U.S. soybean, excuse me, the U.S. Spring, and excuse me, the USDA's spring planting survey is the first one the market we're looking at right now. Uh, some of the initial thoughts were a reduction from 98 point, I think, 4 or so down to 95 million on corn. Um, the surveys that came out from at this point from Reuters, particularly, they had their number at 94.4. That's about 200,000 acres higher than my estimate at this point. So soybeans, they came in with 85.55, and that's very similar to my number on soybeans. Wheat, their all wheat number was 44.8, down from like 45.3, and I was at 44.6. So close along the way on the overall wheat numbers in that as we look at that. Uh, that's going the right way. At this point, if you put a reasonable forward expectations of 182 or less on yields, you're going to definitely tighten up the corn some. But the same situation is that the beans, we need to see if we can get our demand structure figured out there better. And hopefully the Chinese will be looking at that too. Unfortunately, right now, Brazil's had a very, very good soybean crop. It's already pretty well uh, harvested at this point. Argentina's crop maybe not as good. They actually reduced their seedings this year because of switch over to corn. But at the same time, uh, right now at least, I don't think that the Argentine soybean number is still hanging in the 47, 48 million metric ton level, and that still is going to be somewhat adequate down there. Now, the other side of the coin here, you're also going to get the quarterly stocks reports, which is always a kind of referendum on our U.S. feed demand as we go into the last half of the year. To some extent, the statistics on corn. Uh, Seasonally, we usually have a big portion of our corn demand projected because of what's